Hi there, my name is Elena Stevens-Deckard, and this is my final project video for VideoMGT400. So getting started, when I first read the prompt, two businesses that come to mind. One was Stevens Manufacturing, which is my current place of employment, and one that my grandfather started over 60 years ago that is still here today. And another business that I wanted to compare to was one that was popular, one that was traded on the stock market, and one that, somebody could easily relate to, which we will be talking about Walmart. So, of course, like I said, getting started, I started researching litigations and Walmart procedures for their employees and management team on Google. I was having a very difficult time not finding litigations, but finding an employee handbook, any protocol that Walmart may follow, and come to find out, one article that I have that I'll be referencing here, is reported by the New York Times that gives an incident of two different related litigations that arose between Walmart and the employees. So from the article, it states that Walmart routinely refuses to accept doctor's notes, penalizing workers who need to take care of sick family members, and otherwise punishing employees for lawful absences. Okay, so this is literally the second sentence in this article published by the New York Times, and it just really startled me that this is acceptable as a corporation and even as a manager or supervisor working for Walmart, and the employees underneath me, that they was allowing this stuff to happen. So, of course, Walmart is such a huge business. They have over 1 million employees currently. But the survey that was conducted by the New York Times was based on 1,000 employees. And it told that out of these 1,000 employees, Walmart had accused of violating the ADA Act, the American and Family Leave Act, along with other worker protection laws, which included also the EEOC, where a woman was discriminated because she was pregnant. So that really triggered me at first whenever I was reading this. But according to the employee who was pregnant, her story talks about how she was working at Walmart currently, and during her employment, she had a miscarriage. During her miscarriage, of course, she had hospital visits, actually a hospital stay, and she received a doctor's statement. When she went to turn that in, they wouldn't accept it, along with the reports of her hospitalization. The employee states in this report by the New York Times that she still had a lot of bleeding, a lot of difficulty, a lot of physical features, that she wasn't comfortable with, but she still had to be at work the next day after being released from the hospital, even though her statement clearly said not to return to work until a given date, but her supervisor at the time would not accept it. So being, I guess at this time, a woman in distress, she returned to work because she didn't want to lose her job. And then at the end of the article, it gives another instance where another woman who was also an employee there, had her own story about being pregnant, and another Walmart location would not accept her doctor's excuse. But one also thing that I found is that out of all the Walmarts, you will not find an employee handbook with any employee. You can only find those, according to another article that was wrote in 2017. You can only find their employee handbook most of the time in their break room by an internal computer system that must be accessed by your manager. So if I was an employee there and I had any questions about any procedures or protocols or guidelines that I may follow, I don't even have direct access to that. With Stevens employees that work here, the first day you're hired, you get to take home a Stevens employee handbook. So actually this is mine copy. I have numerous pages marked all the time because I have employees coming up to me on a daily basis asking, trying to figure out what to do, but they don't have theirs handy if it's at home or it may be in their workstation. Stevens' policies. I'm going to reference to you page number 4 of the Stevens handbook. Our second sentence starts out that Stevens Manufacturing Company is here to provide equal opportunity employment to all employees and applicants for employment. No person shall be discriminated against the employment because of race, religion, color, sex, age, national origin, or disability. This policy applies to all terms, conditions, and privileges of the employment, including hiring, probation, training, placement, and employee facilities and termination. Okay, so that's our second sentence. It's there, plain and simple. And Stevens has stuck to this for almost 60 years. Out of the 60 years of employment that we have been here in Tompkinsville, as far as I know, we have only had one claim, and it didn't even end up in court. Luckily, we was able to settle before it reached that point, and that escalated because it came down to, and this is settled, so I can talk about it now, but an employee that was here on a daily basis was not completing his task like he was supposed to. It was very easy for him to get distracted. And on the reports that we was given for his evaluations that he was receiving actually every 6 months, on his reports it said he was doing all he could. You know, it was giving him 5 stars all the way down. But after we fired him, he came back and said, you know, if I was given 5 stars, why did you fire me? So this was actually somewhere that we have improved on dramatically for all supervisors and managers who now do these evaluations, that if an employee is not doing their job, don't give them 5 stars, even though this is a small town. And I'm sure you know everybody that works here, and you know their family and what they're going through. It comes down to business that if they're not doing 5 stars, then don't give them 5 stars. Because as an employee and as an employer, that come back and hurt Stevens is because we had to settle with this employee who would probably, if we went to court, would have won because we was at fault. So one more article that I wanted to reference to was from an article in 2017. It told that all Walmart employees are, of course, on a point system, and their point system is very strict. I would have to say that we probably wouldn't have half the workers here just because this point system is so strict. But for example, to compare between the two policies, an unauthorized day of working would be considered 1 point, whereas in Stevens' policy you want to be given half a point. And termination would be at, would be at 4 points for a 6-month period. So at Stevens' we do a roll in 12 months, and of course one would roll off and one can go back on, but you'd have to get a total of 6 points in order to be terminated. But along the point system, we have in place steps to where an employee knows that they're about to be terminated. At 3 points, back in reference to our Stevens employee manual, so I tell you correctly, at 5 points, you get a documented verbal that the employee, employer, supervisor all have to sign off on. At 6 points, they get a written warning, and at 7 points is termination. So they're very, very different. Stevens is definitely a whole lot more lenient than Walmart is, but I can understand why. You know, Stevens, we have 130 employees and Walmart has over 1 million. You know, at some point in time, you have to be more strict. Stevens also has a lot more skilled workers to where, you know, it's hard to hire somebody off the streets, you know, and tell them just to stock shelf all day. Our employees require certain pre-employment testing before we can put them in the shop in regards to welding or electrical and stuff like that. But these are two definitely different companies that, of course, aim at different markets and have different employee bases. But I found it really interesting, in particular, to their policies and the difference between me giving an employee every day a handbook if they need it, if they lose it, if they update it, I will make sure they have a copy. But as an Walmart employee, at least by these articles written, again, in 2017, they did not have copies. I just found that very interesting, and I could understand where it'd be troublesome for an employee is told or is expected to do these things, but they have no proof that they need to. But anyways, this is my final project. I hope you enjoyed my topics, and thanks again.